What's up, you guys? It's your boy Miguel here to give you your daily dose of radiation. In today's video, we are covering X-ray exposure. So to give you context, I am a night shift X-ray tech. Been doing it for over 4 years. And the exposure number, it can be like EI, SI, depending on the machine you use or the system you use. So essentially, for those who do not know, when you expose an X-ray, there's a little readout that will tell you if it's overexposed, underexposed, or just right. So, sometimes you'll shoot the X-ray and the X-ray will look fine, but the exposure number will be off. Now, and sometimes, depending on your patient, what they got going on, let's say it's a trauma. When it's a trauma, we're not really as focused unless it's like burnt or like blurry or anything that causes it not to read. If it's a true trauma, you shoot it and probably that's all you're gonna get. If it's really, really bad and you gotta redo it, okay, but most of the time you're not really worried about the exposure output number in super trauma situations. Just putting that out there because I remember one time there was a student who was like, Miguel, the readout isn't within optimal range. And I'm like, we're even lucky we got the X-ray. Like we had maybe 30 seconds to get it done and we probably won't get another chance to do it. So just putting that out there for those who do not know. All right? But anyways, like with mine on the Fujis, the perfect number is 200. Some places they have a little coloring code system, like green is good, red is underexposed. No, red is like underexposed, and then yellow is like it could be better, but it's like barely acceptable. And then I forgot, and then I think black is like it's like burnt. So there's like different things, but those are like on the GEs on the main X-rays. But on the portable, it's just a readout number. I think 200 is a good number, and then it just will vary. So if it's like 53 is the readout, that means the image was overexposed, and then anything above 200, that means it was underexposed. So usually it's a range between like, I want to say between 200 to 3 to 400-ish on the Fujis. On ours, those are still okay. Anything above 500, usually it starts to get grainy and it's hard to see. Sometimes you can save the image if you throw a little grid on it. Like if you shot it without grid and you throw grid, sometimes that will help you. You can mess around like that. Other times you can go in the post-processing and you can kind of tweak it a little bit, not too much. Because sometimes you'll shoot it, and it's mainly on older patients with hardwire, like with some like prosthesis and stuff. You'll shoot it and it'll get burnt out the bone because of the prosthesis. You can only do so much on those. Like most of the time, if you shoot it with a grid, it might be a little bit better, but a lot of the times it gets burnt out and it's kind of hard to do, especially if it's like super old people with a lot of hardware in their body. It's kind of hard sometimes, especially portable. Maybe you'll have better images if you take them on the main X-ray machine, the big one on the table, but sometimes with older people, moving them and it's too much liability and too much work. Especially if you work night shift, we don't got time for that. You just trying to shoot people and keep it pushing, right? So, as far as how to fix it, once again, it all depends on the exam you got going on. Let's just say you're doing a KUB on a America patient, big boy, 400 or 500 pounds, right? I noticed. I'll give you an example of if when you do it on the table, the big one, and then when you do a portable, right? Okay. So if you're doing a portable, and you place the board under. If it's a big person, KUB, it can be, the most I've ever had to do was I think 4 to 5, because their abdomen or their intestine or their adipose just spread so wide. Or sometimes they have like the Santa belly, where it's like, it's not wide, but it's just so, it's like it's forward, it's super dense. So if they're like wide and you shoot it, you don't have to shoot it as hot. So as far as like on ours, if they were like just wide but big, probably a 85 kVp, 30 to 40 mass, and you'll probably be okay portable wise. Now if they're like super thick and dense on their belly, I would probably be shooting, once again, 85 kVp, and then mass maybe 50 plus, 50, sometimes 60. But when you start bumping up your technique super high, especially portable, you better start backing up. And sometimes even 6 feet don't feel enough, because that beep is like super, super long. Like, because if you shoot it, I used to shoot them way less hot, and the image would be apparently subpar sometimes. And then we got an email, because apparently our images weren't as good. So like we started to like bump up the technique more, and I was like, apparently Miguel's been following Alar too much. You've been doing the low dose. Apparently I need to tweak my technique more. Which that all comes with time, as far as the technique and stuff like that. But if you do the, like, let's say a bigger patient on the table, laying down, will give you the most optimal images every single time, because the board, like the Xray table, has the best, like, even for bigger people, you will always get the best images. Portable, it's not always as like crisp and clean compared to the actual table, but it is a little bit more work sometimes. Or certain patients is you can't really bring them down to the table to shoot it, so you just kind of get what you can technique wise over there. I mean, you just set probably a large, and you might be okay. Sometimes under the large technique, you may have to use a fixed technique, so you have to like manually set it, the technique, and depending on the ACs or the shutter exposure, you may have to turn them on, just because sometimes you're shooting super hot, and sometimes you still can't see nothing, even on the tables. Like, there's been times where me and a veteran tech shot like a 500 pound patient, and we shoot it and we look at it and we're like, can't see nothing. And then he's like, you need to set technique, Miguel. And I was like, okay, what are you thinking? Not veteran tech with like 20 plus years. She's like, shoot it at this. And I was like, D. Like, beep. And we both looked at it, nothing. And we're like, well, patient's too big. He's like, that's what I figured that was going to happen, but if we don't try, these doctors will never understand. So, let's see what else. Especially with like PDs, with like any kids and stuff like that, if you shoot it, and let's say you accidentally shot it under a regular adult technique instead of a kid, most likely it will be super dark and you'll have a bad number and you have to tweak. Sometimes if you're in a hurry, and even if you shoot it under an adult technique but you still drop it down to a kid technique, you'll be fine. There's been times where I've been in a hurry and accidentally shot it under a kid's technique in adult, but I just looked at it before I shot it and I just bumped up the technique to the regular adult, and once again you'll be fine there too. But once again, it all comes down to the equipment, to what stuff the patient has going on. Obviously, like if the patient has a cast, has other artifacts, you're going to have to shoot it hotter. Maybe some cases KVP, sometimes mass, depending on That will literally take, like, that's what I'm doing at this point in my career, is mainly focusing on my technique, because at the first like year I'm just trying to figure out all the other aspects of the job to make sure you have the best coverage. So at this point, I'm just tweaking, trying to master that skill. And then with each machine, different techniques. They can be the same machine. Like I have two Fujis, they both shoot differently. There's one you had to shoot odder than the other one. There's like two standing X-ray machines, same thing. They're all different. One, every time we shoot it, it looks like it's burnt, but it's not. I don't know what's wrong with that machine. Even with the perfect readout number, it looks like it's burnt. We just adjust it. I don't know what's wrong with that one. But then once again, sometimes the image will look okay. The number will be okay. And you send it to the rad, because we look our X-rays on a little portable on the PACS system thing, and you send it to the rad. The rad over here has the 4K big old jumbo computer that can look into pixels, and that's who's gonna ultimately look at it and be like, hey, this image is subpar. Hey, shoot it again, the technique wasn't good, or that can complain. Because most of us as techs will look at it, and if it looks good enough, you'll send it. But sometimes once the rad starts zooming in and messing with stuff, or depending on what they're trying to see, maybe whatever they're trying to see, maybe it got burnt out. Maybe it's underexposed on a certain spot that they see something. So, because sometimes the rad will send the report to the doctor, to the ER doctor, and sometimes they won't call you. Sometimes just on the report, the ER doctor will read it and it'll be like, subpar imaging. Request another image with for more optimal technique, or maybe they'll say something that maybe try a decubitus this time to see the air fluid levels or whatever they're trying to see, right? And then that changes how you adjust your technique or how you deal with the patient, and it just kind of changes the whole thing. So if you think school to me was always the hardest part. This point of where I am at with the working at work, it's all just comes down to like mastering your craft and trying to get the best images. Because sometimes, depending on what the patient got going on, you'll shoot an X-ray and maybe they're frequent flyers and they know that usually a foot X-ray is so many exams, right? And maybe you're shooting it and you're shooting it. I think, me personally, majority of the times, if I'm going to have to repeat an exam, most of the time it's okay as far as exposure. It's when it's the positioning that I might have to go get another tech. But I know when I was like the newer tech, for even exposure numbers, I would have to sometimes go get the veteran tech that knows more, that's been doing it for like 20 years. You'll know more about, like, some equipment, maybe you have to throw a slight angle so the ACE or whatever doesn't get burnt out, or maybe you have to tweak it a certain way. All these machines are shitty in their own way, and they need sometimes to be adjusted or to be... It's weird. It's weird how some of these equipment works. But anyways, I hope that knowledge helps someone out there, and we'll see you on the next one.